This is a pretty interesting article by Politico. It's called Nikki Haley is Consolidating the Never Trump Vote. 2 years after Nikki Haley vowed not to challenge Donald Trump for the presidential nomination, the former South Carolina governor, who served in his administration and once called him a friend, is becoming the standard bearer of the movement to knock him out. In recent weeks, Haley has drawn a surge in support from Trump skeptical Republicans across the GOP, including donors and organizers in early voting states. A group of former Tim Scott donors is preparing to host a fundraiser for her in Manhattan. Haley's campaign events in New Hampshire this week required overflow rooms, and in Iowa, where Haley has steeper competition from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, some conservatives are busy corralling support for her. Nikki Haley is certainly locking up a lot of never Trumpers, said Matthew Bartlett, a Republican operative who has worked on several presidential campaigns and is unaffiliated this cycle. She also has real room to grow. Donors getting ready to host Haley in New York on December 4th include two people close to Paul Singer, the hedge fund billionaire who has been critical of Trump. Greg Wendt, a former Scott supporter who has donated to moderate anti-Trump Republicans such as John Kasich and John McCain, is now expressing interest in Haley, according to a New York City-based Republican fundraiser granted anonymity to speak freely about private conversations. And Doug Gross, of all the last names, a Republican operative who was the Iowa GOP nominee for governor in 2002, told Politico he plans to caucus for Haley after surveying the field for months to search for an alternative to Trump. Never Trumpers and anybody but Trumpers are really consolidating around her from a financial standpoint, said Gross, who was chief of staff to former Iowa Governor Terry Bradstad. Haley is benefiting from this recent surge of support. She is now polling ahead of DeSantis in New Hampshire, the first primary state, and in her home state of South Carolina. One recent survey showed her running neck and neck with DeSantis in Iowa. I was kind of vacillating between three or four different people, said Carmen Bowl, a former state lawmaker from Iowa who said she's supporting Haley because she thinks she is the most likely candidate to topple Trump. The only thing I knew was I would not support him in the caucuses. I think Haley will do well with the independents, particularly suburban women. And everyone knows elections are won or lost by the independent vote. Alyssa Farah Griffin, a co-host of The View and former Trump White House aide who has been critical of the former president's candidacy, described Haley on Tuesday as hands down the best option to beat Trump. Still, Haley is running far behind the former president, and in a party he continues to dominate, consolidating the anti-Trump vote is likely to get Haley only so far. In a still crowded primary, Haley is in some ways the latest manifestation of the challenge confronting all of them. Run hard against Trump and turn off those who stick by his side, support him and lose those desperate for a different choice next year. It's a lot of the old school Republicans who did not like Trump but voted for him the first time with their fingers crossed and then refused to vote for him a second time. Sarah Longwell, an anti-Trump Republican who routinely conducts focus groups of GOP voters, said of Haley's sweet spot in the primary electorate, but that is still not where the Republican electorate is. I do think that most people seem aware that her path is an extraordinarily narrow one, Longwell said. I mean, extraordinarily narrow. Haley is trying to widen that path by appealing to both the MAGA base and the rest of the Republican Party, as well as to its far-right conservatives and more moderate voters. After months of delivering unspecific answers on abortion policy that aimed to show nuance and compassion at the November debate, she voiced support for a state-level 6-week ban during a candidate forum hosted by conservative evangelical groups in the Des Moines last week. That is not unlike how Haley has approached Trump supporters and detractors, going through phases over the last 8 years of opposing and praising Trump, and more recently doing both. As governor of South Carolina in 2016, Haley spoke out against Trump becoming the Republican nominee, putting her endorsement behind Senator Marco Rubio. Then, after Trump's election, her appointment as United States ambassador changed her relationship with the now former president, and she included glowing remarks about Trump in the book she published after leaving the post in 2018. But Haley, in the aftermath of the 2021 ride to the Capitol, oscillated between condemning Trump for decisions he made in the White House to later declaring that conservatives need him in the Republican Party. Man, these flip-floppers. Now, on the trail, Haley has sought to hold space for everyone's feelings about Trump, repeatedly saying that he was the right president at the right time, but criticizing aspects of his foreign policy and personality. Even if she is drawing the support of never Trump Republicans, she isn't campaigning like when his former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie does. Where her support comes from are people who are maybe Trump. The people who voted for Trump twice would vote for him against Joe Biden in a heartbeat, but are worried or at least lost, or at least interested in who else is out there, said Republican pollster Whit Ayers. At the moment, it appears to be working, and Haley's about to unleash a torrent of advertising in the final run-up to the early state contests. The Haley camp is currently leading the rest of the field with upcoming television and reservations. From Thanksgiving week through the January 23rd New Hampshire primary, the top two groups to reserve ad time are the Haley campaign and her super PAC, Stand for America Funding. The Haley campaign so far has booked 4.2 million worth of ads from now to then in Iowa and New Hampshire, while SFA Fund has reserved 3.8 million, according to the tracking firm Ad Impact. Haley's campaign announced it plans to reserve a total of 10 million in television, radio, and digital ads in the first two states. This goes on for a little bit longer. We're almost there. DeSantis, meanwhile, has booked 1.5 million on TV in the same time frame, all in Iowa, and his alleged super PAC, Never Back Down, has his aligned super PAC, 3.3 million worth of TV ads on the books in New Hampshire and Iowa ahead of the New Hampshire primary. DeSantis still drawing support of his own from some Trump critics. On Tuesday, Bob Vanderplatz, an influential evangelical leader in Iowa, endorsed him. While people in DeSantis' inner circle downplay Haley's rise, NBC reported Tuesday that the super PAC closely aligned with the former governor's campaign for pulling anti-Haley ads in Iowa because they aren't well received. Haley and her campaign are now taking a victory lap, openly claiming ownership of the number 2 spot in the race, one that belonged exclusively to DeSantis for months. There is a growing consensus that Nikki Haley is the best challenger to take on Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Olivia Perez Cubas, Haley's spokesperson, said in a statement to Politico, "This is a two-person race between one man and one woman." On Tuesday, Trump spokesperson Stephen Chewing said, "Ron DeSantis must be devastated his never Trump sugar daddies have found someone new." The DeSantis campaign declined to respond to Chung's comment. Well, there was quite a bit to unpack there. Maybe we could start in order. Maybe we could just kind of go all over the place. I'm feeling like doing a little bit of both. I'm gonna now refer to these big donors as sugar daddies, because that is what they are. They're people who give a politician a lot of money so that when that person gets in office, they can, scratch their back, give them a nice little benefit, kickback, favors. So I'm going to use that term whenever we're talking about donors like these. And I'm not saying donors like a regular person gives $10 to Sanders or one of them. When you have a millionaire that gives, 100,000, or they host some big fundraiser in upstate New York, it's the sugar daddy meeting. I love this term. I guess we can start in order, because this really all mostly is just money, 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 money. So she's getting a lot of these other candidates, donors like Tim Scott's donors, to support her. And this isn't surprising, because all these people have had one aligned goal. They like the policies of Trump, but they either don't think Trump can win again, or they don't want Trump to win again. So they're trying to keep the same general ideas without the person that last time implemented them, or at least, gave lip service to, depending on what policy they're talking about. So for them, it's easy to go from Scott to Haley, or from really just any of them. I guess you could also throw in Pence as well, although he was like the last person the donors even wanted to look at for a while. It's also kind of comedic that they talk about her having this narrow chance, this very narrow path to winning. But I sometimes wonder, because this is still not a two-person race in any technical form. You still have Ramaswamy and Christie as well, and also DeSantis. So if those three were to get out tomorrow or in December, what would be the percentage that Haley would get from that? Would she then suddenly be at 40%? Because you have to ask yourself, if like, I get where you see Haley at 20 something, Trump at 49 or whatever, and you're like, oh, it's whatever, she's gonna lose. But when you think about that, DeSantis tends to get about 14, 15, 16, 17 points as well. And then you have someone like Christie, who's not even really that well liked in his own party anymore, but he's still getting like 9, 8, 10% in New Hampshire. It really makes you wonder, is Trump's hold on the party really that strong? If hypothetically, if these other people dropped out and Haley gained all of it, would she have a chance? Would she be able to beat him? See, they talk about money, and I get it. You need money to run a campaign. You know, we talked before about how Citizens United destroyed elections over here, where everything is just, hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. I mean, they even spent millions on a House seat, which was just embarrassing. But when you really think about it, these people are supporting her because, again, they don't want Trump to win, and they don't want Trump to win because they don't think he can beat Biden, or they don't like him personally. It's nothing to do with policy. But the other part of this that's really kind of crazy is that they're talking about how, just as another example, and I was actually shocked by just how much this article is just money, 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 money. Oh, this person gave this person gave that. It's really U.S. democracy, man. I tell you. So what I was trying to say is that Haley, if she were a smarter candidate, if she were someone who was dead serious about, I am the best alternative, etc., in the event that DeSantis drops out, which I don't think will happen before Iowa, I think she's just gonna have to put up with losing that state because the ego on that man is too much. He wants to be president now, but I think, because they're talking about, oh, she sometimes praises Trump, sometimes criticizes him, trying to like keep his supporters. Look, whenever you run against somebody, you have to make the point of why you're better. This is why Ramaswamy, he got that little brief surge, right, after the first debate. But guess what? Because you can't sit around praising the person that you're running against. Because why would anyone vote for you over your opponent if you're saying that they're good, or they're good in their own right, or whatever? So what Haley should do for these next 2 months, with all of her little ads and all the little commercials that she's gonna have all over the place, she should engage in commercials and advertisements that point to Trump losing his re-election, and not even just that, but like all the lies. I mean, here's a guy who says, I don't want to cut Social Security, and then we have his budget proposals when he was president that proposed cutting them. Actually attack him on policy-based things. Talk about how he's such a coward that he can't even go to a debate. Talk about his entitlement. He thinks that he's owed the nomination because, they did a poll and he's at 40%. I think if she attacked him in substantive ways, there'd be some Republican voters that go, I can't believe she would do that to Trump, I'll never vote. But I think most of them would respect her more for it, and she would have a higher chance of winning. Because even the ones that play the whole I'm not voting for her nonsense, in the general, they're going to support her over Biden. That's obvious. But she just never has struck me as the person who really wants to win this. That's why everyone running for president this time around, besides Trump and maybe DeSantis, just feel like they're doing this to get more attention for themselves. Like, okay, after I spend a couple of months traveling around the country pretending I want this top job, I'll get a book deal, or I'll show up on, as a paid contributor on Fox or CNN. She strikes me as the same thing, because you hear about the new generational leader, and she's got her talking points about North Korea and China and all these other countries that she claims she's such an expert on, even though UN ambassador really is not the top foreign policy job, but whatever. It's really hilarious to me that you have this person that claims to want to be president, but all they can do is go to fundraisers and maybe stick out their hand to criticize their former boss every now and again. But I just don't think she has it in her to actually go after Trump in any direct ways that are going to be damaging to him long term, and that's going to prevent her from getting the nomination. These other people can keep staying in the race for whatever amount of time they want. I mean, we already saw from someone like Asa Hutchinson, you can be in the race and it still doesn't make a difference with 1% or whatever amount he gets. So them being there really doesn't impair her all that much from being able to, at the very least, close the gap between her and Trump to probably 10 points or less. She just doesn't have the fortitude so far, and possibly never will during this race, to criticize him in a serious manner, and that is going to be the thing that kills her campaign. She has received tremendous boost over the last several months since they did that first debate back in August, but it's not enough to get her over the finish line because she's not willing to directly confront the candidate that they're all scared of, except for Christie, that is. So it's unfortunate that people who want to be leader of the free world, most powerful person in the world, and they can't even criticize a game show host. like if I was running for the Republican nomination and I'm running against Trump, I'm gonna tell you why I'm better than he is. I'm gonna tell you that he's a person who, maybe I can, if I'm a conservative, acknowledge that I like the policies of, but he's a failed commander-in-chief, the first president of the 21st century to lose re-election. And he lost it to a guy that a lot of people don't even think is still alive. It's embarrassing that these people have millions of dollars behind them. They get to go on TV and talk for 10, 20, 30 minutes and are held up as being smart. They have these big crowds of people. And yet, even with all this support and backing, they're still too spineless to tell the truth about their opponent. And that fatal flaw is going to be what stops Haley from winning this primary.